What would you do if your plane were about to fly straight into a tornado?
You're gonna lose it all of a sudden. There it is.
Not near one, not around one, through one. It's the nightmare scenario no pilot wants to face.
Air 22 Golf, stay altitude. 2500 to the Golf. Air 22 Golf, low altitude alert. Climb immediately. Climb immediately. Climb the airplane. Maintain 5,000.
And here's the truth. No one has ever survived a direct hit through a tornado's core, but some have come terrifyingly close. And their stories taught aviation everything it knows about what unsurvivable really means. This is the story of metal versus wind, engineering versus chaos, and the moment when human ingenuity met nature's absolute limit. August 2nd, 1985, Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, 101 degrees Fahrenheit. The kind of scorching Texas afternoon where heat shimmers rise off the tarmac and thunderstorms build on the horizon like dark towers. Gray Creech was a young Air Force airman that day, heading home to North Carolina on leave. He sat in a window seat on the second plane lined up for takeoff, looking out at the runway ahead. Dark clouds gathered at the far end, black, menacing, the kind of storm front that makes you grateful you're on the ground. Then he saw an orange light, brilliant, impossibly bright orange cutting through the darkness. My brain didn't register what I was seeing, Creech would later recall. What he witnessed was Delta Flight 191 crashing on landing, a Lockheed L-1011 with 163 souls on board, slamming into the earth just short of the runway. Creech watched it unfold in slow motion, the initial fireball. Then, as the plane rolled over, breaking apart and slowing down, the fire caught up with it, engulfed it. The aircraft came to rest directly across from his window, on the other side of the runway in the grass. Then the rain hit, a wall of water so intense that it turned the fireball into a massive column of black and white smoke. The pilot's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, there has been a tragedy. I'm sorry, but we can't return to the terminal and let anyone deplane." Creech remembers thinking that was the last thing anyone wanted to hear. Anyone who saw what he saw didn't want to stay on their plane, didn't want to go flying, but they had no choice. On the ground, chaos. Delta Flight 191 had encountered something invisible, something that didn't exist on any radar. A microburst. A column of air slamming downward from the sky at 6,000 feet per minute, hitting the ground and spreading outward in a ring of violence. The plane struck the earth short of the runway, hit a car on Highway 114, rebounded into the air, then slammed down again, sliding forward until it crashed into massive water tanks on the north side of the airport. The impact and rupturing tanks created a fireball that consumed most of the aircraft. 137 people perished that day. Only 26 survived, mostly those seated in the rear section. What Delta 191 flew into wasn't a tornado, but it was just as lethal to aircraft. And understanding why requires understanding the invisible physics of fatal wind. Think of a microburst as a massive bucket of air being dumped from the sky. Cold air plunges downward at incredible speed. When it hits the ground, it has nowhere to go but outward. It spreads in all directions, creating a ring of violent, outward-blasting wind that can reach speeds over 100 miles per hour in seconds. Most microbursts are 1 to 2 miles across. Here's why they're deadly threats to aircraft. A plane approaching a runway needs stable, predictable air. Suddenly, it hits a headwind, wind coming straight at the nose. The plane lifts up. The pilot compensates, pushing the nose down to maintain the approach path. Then, in an instant, the wind shifts. Now it's a tailwind pushing from behind. The plane drops like a stone. There's no time to recover. Too close to the ground. Too sudden. Too violent. This is called wind shear. The wind literally shears in different directions at different altitudes, sometimes changing by 100 miles per hour within seconds. On the morning of August 2nd, 1985, conditions were primed for this phenomenon. The morning radiosonde data from Stephenville, Texas, showed stable, low-level air with modest instability. Nothing alarming, but the afternoon heat changed everything. By early afternoon, temperatures at DFW climbed to 101 degrees. That daytime heating, combined with low-level moisture, created towering cumulus clouds across North Texas. A cold front to the north provided the trigger. The atmosphere became a loaded weapon. The temperature profile showed what meteorologists call an inverted V pattern. Dry air at mid-levels, moist air near the surface. This creates perfect microburst conditions. Scientists measure this using something called theta E, equivalent potential temperature. On August 2nd, the theta E difference was 25.9 Kelvin. In other words, the atmosphere was primed to create powerful, sudden downdrafts. But in 1985, radar couldn't see this. The Stephenville radar, located 80 miles southwest of DFW, showed precipitation echoes ranging from weak to strong intensity. But it had no Doppler capability, no way to measure wind speed or direction, no way to see the invisible, lethal threat inside those clouds.
Prior to 1985, the radars on board the aircraft were built to detect thunderstorms, essentially heavy areas of precipitation. They were not effective, they were not even designed to detect the microburst.
The weather observer at the center of DFW Airport recorded relatively calm winds, but just 1 mile to the north, where Flight 191 was landing, 80-mile-per-hour gusts were occurring. The microburst was completely invisible to the tools they had. And that's the terrifying reality. What happened to Delta 191 could happen to any aircraft encountering these conditions. The plane flew through the outer edge of the microburst, not even the core, and it still cost 137 lives. Which brings us to the question, could you survive flying through something even worse, through an actual tornado? If you're fascinated by the power of nature and the real stories of those who face it, hit that subscribe button right now. Here at Stormforge, we dive deep into the most intense weather events in history and explore the thin line between survival and disaster. We release new videos every week, covering everything from record-breaking tornadoes to catastrophic hurricanes and the technology developed to keep us safe. Your subscription helps us continue researching and bringing you these incredible true stories. Subscribe to Stormforge and turn on notifications so you never miss the next storm story. Now, back to the question of survival. A tornado's core generates winds between 200 and 300 miles per hour. Some exceed that. The rotating column creates centrifugal force, like being inside a giant blender operating at 35,000 feet. Add to that updrafts and downdrafts fighting each other, creating chaotic, unpredictable airflow. Hailstones the size of softballs, and debris transformed into high-speed projectiles. Here's what aircraft can actually withstand. A modern commercial jet, like a Boeing 737 or Airbus A320, has an aluminum fuselage that begins to deform at 150 miles per hour of crosswind. At 200 miles per hour, you get catastrophic structural failure. The wings are designed for smooth, steady airflow, not violent, chaotic turbulence. Control surfaces become completely useless in that kind of rotation. Small aircraft, like Cessnas or private planes, survivability is essentially zero. They'd be torn apart like paper. Wing separation would occur in seconds. What about military jets, F-16s, F-22s, aircraft designed for supersonic speeds and combat stress? They have reinforced structures and might endure momentary shear forces. But here's the problem. It's not just about wind speed, it's about chaos. The math is simple and unforgiving. Aluminum fuselage stress tolerance, 150 miles per hour maximum. Tornado core winds, 200 to 300 miles per hour. The metal cannot withstand the force. This isn't about better design or better engineering. It's about the fundamental limits of physics. You can't build a house to survive a nuclear blast. Some forces exceed what materials can handle. Even if the structure somehow held, control would become impossible. Flight depends on predictable airflow of the wings. A tornado provides a constantly changing airflow in every direction. Think about trying to drive a car where the road randomly tilts in different directions 100 times per second. No human pilot could compensate.
No autopilot system could process changes that rapidly. Then there's debris. Tornadoes don't just spin air. They carry trees, cars, building materials, and pieces of metal. All of it is moving at 200 miles per hour or more. A single 2x4 board at that speed penetrates an aircraft like a projectile through paper. You'd need tank armor to protect against that kind of kinetic energy. Tank armor is too heavy to fly, and navigation becomes impossible. Inside a tornado, you have zero visibility. Rain, hail, and debris create an opaque wall. You can't see 10 feet ahead. You'd have to navigate by instruments only. But the instruments fail. Electromagnetic interference, radar signal loss, electrical systems are overloaded by lightning strikes. Pitot tubes clog with water and ice, meaning your airspeed indicators stop working. You're flying blind in forces that cannot be survived. Add hail bombardment, windshields cracking, fuselage getting dented and punctured. Icing conditions are causing wings to lose their ability to generate lift. There is one theoretical path to survival: the outer bands. A tornado has zones of different intensity. The core runs at 200 to 300 miles per hour, unsurvivable. The inner circulation ranges from 150 to 200 miles per hour. Catastrophic damage is almost certain. But the outer circulation, the peripheral region, might see winds of 100 to 150 miles per hour. Theoretically, with the right aircraft, that might be survivable. The problem is that these zones shift rapidly and unpredictably. There's no way to intentionally stay in the safer outer zone. It's like trying to surf the edge of a whirlpool. Even if you could somehow do it for a few seconds, the slightest mistake pulls you into the core. And even peripheral contact has proven fatal. April 4th, 1977. Southern Airways Flight 242, a DC-9 flying through Georgia thunderstorms. The crew encountered severe hail and torrential rain. Both engines flamed out from water ingestion. They attempted an emergency landing on a highway near New Hope, Georgia. The plane crashed. 62 of the 85 people on board perished. Southern Airways 242 flew through the outer edges of a tornadic thunderstorm. Not the core, just the edges, and it still proved fatal. Delta Flight 191 encountered similar conditions. Wind speeds at the crash site estimated at over 100 miles per hour vertical downdraft. Horizontal winds of 80 miles per hour are spreading outward from the impact point. The plane flew through the outer edge of the microburst, not the core. 137 lives lost. Dave Hinton, a researcher from NASA who later studied the incident extensively, said this: "That microburst has been modeled extensively. It was very strong as microbursts go, at the top of the range and 1.5 miles to 2 miles in diameter. That would be easily detectable with the technologies that are out there today." The flight data recorder showed the pilots fought desperately in those final seconds. They had no warning of what they were entering. Modern systems would detect it miles in advance. But in 1985, those systems didn't exist. Fast forward to June 9, 2015. A microburst formed near Dallas Love Field Airport. 67-mile-per-hour wind gusts were recorded on the ground. But this time, terminal Doppler weather radar detected it in real time. The system provided 1-minute updates to air traffic control and pilots. Aircraft were diverted or delayed. 0 casualties. This shows detection works when you have it, when you can see the danger before you fly into it. But what allowed this technology to exist? What changed between 1985 and 2015? Within months of the Delta 191 crash, a partnership formed between government, industry, academia. NASA, the Federal Aviation Administration, MIT Lincoln Labs, and the National Center for Atmospheric Research came together with one goal: to understand and detect microbursts before they cause more loss of life. Dave Hinton from NASA explained, "We advanced the state-of-the-art from basic knowledge of a meteorological phenomenon to developing well-defined system requirements for onboard sensors and crew procedures." NASA flew a specially equipped Boeing 737 into the skies over Denver, Colorado, and Orlando, Florida. The aircraft carried airborne Doppler radar, forward-looking infrared sensors, and advanced data recording systems. Over 2 years, NASA crews flew into 70 microbursts. They started with weak ones and gradually progressed to stronger events. Ground crews with radar helped them locate storms quickly. They validated that detection systems actually work. That technology could see what human eyes and older radar could not. This research led to the Terminal Doppler Weather Radar System, developed at MIT Lincoln Labs. Today, 45 of these specialized radars operate at high-risk airports across the United States and Puerto Rico. They're specifically designed to detect low-level wind shear. The system operates in 2 modes. Monitor mode scans the area every 5 to 6 minutes, like regular weather radar. But when it detects a storm of sufficient strength or wind shear signature, it switches to hazardous mode. In hazardous mode, the radar provides updates every single minute to air traffic controllers and pilots. The Doppler technology can see inside storms. It measures wind moving toward and away from the radar. When it detects a divergent wind pattern, winds spreading outward in opposite directions, that's the signature of a microburst. The result? According to Lincoln Laboratory, no commercial airline accidents caused by wind shear have occurred at airports in which a TDWR is present and operating in the U.S. In 1988, the FAA mandated that all commercial aircraft have onboard wind shear detection systems installed by 1993. Modern aircraft now carry predictive wind shear radar that looks ahead of the plane, warning systems that alert pilots 30 to 60 seconds before encountering dangerous shear, automated recovery guidance that tells pilots exactly what to do, and integration with ground-based systems for complete situational awareness. Airlines were required to train pilots on wind shear recovery procedures. The new protocol: immediate, full thrust, maximum climb angle, no hesitation. Every second counts when you're losing altitude near the ground. The Integrated Terminal Weather System, implemented at major airports by 2001, combines everything: surface weather stations, terminal Doppler radar, next-generation radar, aircraft reports, lightning detection networks, and low-level wind shear alert systems all feed into one unified picture. The system uses algorithms to predict conditions 30 to 60 minutes in advance, giving air traffic controllers and pilots the complete picture of what's happening and what's coming. Gray Creech never forgot what he saw that day: the trauma of watching Delta 191 crash, of being unable to leave his plane, of being forced to sit there while rescue operations began across the runway. He represents how that accident changed aviation psychology.
Before August 2nd, 1985,
storms were avoided when convenient. After, they became absolute no-fly zones. 26 people survived that crash. Most were in the rear section of the aircraft. The rear separated from the front and middle but remained somewhat intact. The fireball consumed everything forward of that section. Those survivors dealt with severe injuries, survivor's guilt, and post-traumatic stress, but their experiences helped investigators understand why that section held together: the importance of seat location during crashes, the value of proper brace positions. 137 families were forever changed. Today, a memorial stands at Founders Plaza on the northwest side of DFW International Airport. The inscription reads, "Due to the improved ability to detect wind shear, the number of aircraft accidents caused by wind shear has dropped significantly since 1995. Their losses led to technology that has saved thousands of lives since, but it's also a reminder that prevention, not survival, is the answer." So here's what we've learned to do. We detect. Modern radar sees microbursts and wind shear before aircraft get anywhere near them. We avoid. Pilots reroute around dangerous storm cells without hesitation. We prepare. Training and procedures exist for recovery if caught on the edge. We improve. Constant refinement of detection systems and warning protocols. And we respect. We understand that some forces must be avoided, not conquered. But here's what we can never do. We cannot fly through a tornado's core. We cannot survive 200 to 300 miles per hour chaotic winds. We cannot protect against debris impact at those speeds. We cannot navigate without instruments in complete electromagnetic chaos. We cannot overcome the fundamental physics of aluminum versus extreme rotational force. In 1985, pilots flew into danger unknowingly. Today, technology warns them miles in advance. In 1985, 137 lives were lost in a single microburst encounter. Today, there have been no wind shear fatalities at airports equipped with terminal Doppler weather radar since the system was installed. The victory isn't in surviving the unsurvivable, it's in having the wisdom and the tools to stay away. Man versus nature isn't always about conquest. Sometimes it's about respect. We can't outfly a tornado. We can't outrun a hurricane's core. We can't out-engineer every force on Earth. There are limits to human technology. Some forces in nature
exceed our engineering capabilities. The question, could you survive flying through a tornado, has one clear answer: no. But the better question is, can we be smart enough not to try? And the answer to that question is yes, because of what we learned from those who had no choice. The survivors of Delta Flight 191 lived because of where they were sitting. The passengers on commercial flights today live because pilots know where not to go. Survival isn't found in heroics or advanced technology. It's found in humility, in knowing that there are forces no pilot, no aircraft, and no civilization can outfly. Sometimes the bravest thing a pilot can do is turn around. And that lesson was written in the smoke rising from a Texas runway on August 2nd, 1985. Next time you fly and encounter turbulence, remember this: those bumps you feel? That's the pilot steering you around weather that could end everything.
Those frustrating delays when storms are in the area? They're keeping you alive. The technology constantly scanning the skies was built from tragedy. The lives lost on Delta Flight 191 are part of the reason you make it home safe, because they taught us that some questions don't need to be answered, some storms don't need to be tested, and some battles with nature are won by having the wisdom not to fight. Do you agree? Could any technology ever make flying through a tornado survivable? Or are some forces simply beyond what engineering can overcome? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching Stormforge. If you found this story compelling, make sure you're subscribed for more deep dives into nature's most powerful forces and the lessons we've learned from them. Until next time, stay safe out there.